Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven. Today our special guest is Dr. Shumaila Hemani, and she is an award-winning ethnomusicologist, soundscape composer, and changemaker based in Alberta. A former music faculty member with Semester at Sea and Faculty of Extension at the University of Alberta, Hemani's work bridges music, ethnography, mental health, and social justice, earning her the Women in Music Canada Honor Roll and the Cultural Diversity Award. Her debut memoir, Writing in the Wound, Acculturation, Trauma, and Music, tells the story of a surviving systematic exclusion and rebuilding a life through art, blending memory, autoethnography, and poetry. It invites readers to listen to the words that shape us and the music that helps us heal. She also publishes prose and poetry in the Goose, National Observer, The Conversation, Arts Desk, and New Forum magazine, to name a few, and was nominated for the Alberta Magazine Awards in the poetry category. So welcome.
Thank you for having me, JF.
Okay, so explain to me, what is an ethnomusicologist?
An ethnomusicology, the discipline is one of the branches of music study and music research, and it primarily deals with music of diverse contexts. It built out of the discipline of musicology that wanted to study music from a cultural and contextual perspective. So prior to this movement, the only thing that was considered relevant for study of music was to understand composer's intention when you're studying a score or looking at the history of music. But with ethnomusicology, we look at the ethnographic present as well as the historical shifts in traditions of music around the world. So, for example, the tradition I studied was a tradition from South Asia, specifically the Sindh region of Pakistan, where I come from. And this musical tradition is a Sufi tradition called the Shah, which is associated with Sufi shrines. So ethnomusicology is really about working with culture bearers who practice these traditions and doing research and ethnographic research. So it's related with anthropology in that respect as well. You could consider it a branch of anthropology that focuses on music. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Almost reminds me of like anthropology mixed with music and stuff like that. And a lot of music, because I studied music in my younger days, but it was all, European composers. Like we never really looked at any other culture of music, right? Um, so cool. So now tell me, how did you end up writing a book, your memoir?
Yeah, well, it's 2025, and I've come a really, really long way in my journey as an ethnomusicologist. I graduated from the University of Alberta in 2019. I earned my doctorate. Then I served as music faculty and as a communication faculty in the Faculty of Extension. And since 2022, I've been working as an artist in residence in Calgary, going from one artist residency to another. So that has been my professional life and frame in the past couple of years. But I find that as a person coming from Pakistan, I've come such a long way in my journey in pursuing my calling in music that I had a story to share. And that story became urgent, uh, especially this year, when my status in Canada expired earlier this year. So I was living out of status, and I had applied for restoration, but the application was in process. And my mother was in Calgary in May, and we were having a casual conversation, and I shared with her the immigration precarity that I'm going through, and she said, "Shumaila, one can only pray for you." And somehow that sentence of hers, it just landed on me in a very, very uncomfortable way. It really felt like a sting. It really felt like, oh my gosh, like there is nothing that can be done in my life like my life is so out of control that one can only pray for me, because it's
Her
just,
tone, like, was it a sympathetic tone or no?
I
Or
think for her it was a sympathetic tone. I
okay,
think it land on me well.
yeah.
And I was in a very, very uncomfortable situation after that. I called the crisis line 3 times in 24 hours, and I could not see my life ahead. I was in a very, very dark spot. I have been experiencing dark spots for some time because of immigration precarity, but this one was very, very severe. And I just could not see my life ahead. Things just felt so out of control. I had applied for a position, an assistant professor position in Pakistan. And so it was, I had to report back to that in July. So in 2 months. So it was almost like wrapping my entire life in Canada after 17 years. It was emotionally, mentally very, very distressing. And after what my mother said, it just accentuated to another level altogether. So I just felt a need to express the journey I had taken, to honor and celebrate how far I had come just for myself, you know. So that's how I started writing my memoir. It was just to celebrate the journey that I've been through, and also as a protest against what I'm experiencing. That, you know, after 17 years of calling this place home, contributing to arts and culture, winning awards, being recognized by the society, but being structurally excluded by the Canadian immigration system. So that became a kind of a necessity, because the counselor said, one of the counselors I spoke to in that 24 hours said, go tell your story. And I had written personal essays prior, but this time around I started writing a memoir. And that's how this big book started.
Can you explain a little bit about the situation? Not everyone's familiar with Immigration Canada. So basically, you come from another country to Canada, and then I guess you're here as I guess because you were doing a PhD, so you're a student, right? And then, but then after you graduated, I guess the status changed. Is that what happened, or?
Yes, so I was a student throughout my graduate. I maintained my status as a full-time student throughout my graduate years, and I did my MA in Canada, followed by a PhD. So I came here in 2008 and graduated in 2019. And all throughout the years that I served as a graduate student, I was also teaching. I was also working as a peer writer, supporter, research and teaching assistant. I taught courses as a principal instructor. So I was working throughout, and those were some very amazing projects I did for Smithsonian Museum and other Folkways Live and so forth. So I was contributing to Canada even as a graduate student. And then when I graduated, I was given a postgraduate work permit. So I was working with as part of the PGWP stream. And because of the COVID, Canadian immigration extended PGWP till 2024,
Sorry, what is PGWP?
postgraduate work permit.
Okay.
So they extended that till 2024 September. And then I applied for an extension and I didn't receive it. So I went out of status in January. But it's also important to bear in mind that I have applied for Canadian permanent residency 5 times.
Oh my gosh.
5 times. And I have come to understand a lot of discrepancies between what the immigration websites say and what is
Mhm.
actually happening underneath that, at different levels. I've also written recently for Canadian Dimension. They published an article of mine on how artistic and scholarly labor is undermined and it's undervalued, underestimated, and undervalued by Canadian immigration. Because some of the earlier streams that they introduced, like the PhD stream, they wanted people to immigrate, have 1 year of full-time experience or 2 years of continuous part-time experience. Now, I have around 10 years of part-time working experience, but because I was in the arts, none of that was continuous, because
Oh, yeah,
artistic
yeah.
is, every semester we were put in another project or
Hmm.
in another class. So it has not been continuous. And it doesn't add up to the hourly quantifiable, thing that we need for 2 years of continuous part-time work. So, it's the immigration system is not open enough to integrate the ways in which artists serve in the society.
Hmm.
And I have applied through the self-employed employment class, and I thought things were going well, except that the applications don't move that fast.
Hmm.
It takes 4 to 6 years, and I'm already 2.5 years past my application phase, and recently learned that it's going to take 10 more years for the immigration,
10
and
years.
10
That's
more years,
crazy.
or it might not even happen. They
Yeah.
might just they might just put all the pending applications in a dustbin. Who knows what's going on right now? Everything is uncertain. So, I mean, after 17 years of contribution and giving to the society and hoping that I would be able to call the society my
Hmm.
home, I really find that Canadian immigration has dehumanized me. And this process is very dehumanizing. It takes away your dignity. And this book is therefore it's a kind of a protest,
Hmm.
kind of while it celebrates my 17 years in Canada, um, you know, following my calling, it's also an appeal to the Canadian government and immigration system to recognize how they treat immigrants and, see my case as what has happened. Like after 17 years, I've been stripped of my status. I've been reduced to a visitor now with just a 3-month stay. And there are all these congratulatory messages I'm receiving about being granted this 3-month status, which is just
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
And my professors and VP from the University of Alberta have written to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of IRCC, but somehow we are all these tiny things that don't matter for people up there, because they reply to us with a canned response.
Yeah.
They don't reply with any recognition. So this book, while it has given me an anchor to go to organizations and share my story. I'm also experiencing another side of Canada where even community organizations have treated me in a way that is going to be subject of future personal essays.
Oh no, I'm very sorry that's happened.
I am surprised, and I
Yeah.
really had to protect myself and keep myself focused that, hey, I've been here for 17 years. I know what Canada is about. I know this that I'm experiencing is not okay, and it's not common. And it's something to be written about, something to be called on. But this is not Canada I came to.
Okay. Now,
Yeah.
in your book, you mention different continents. I mean, from Karachi to Edmonton and Banff to Boston. So you've traveled a lot and you migrated to a lot of places. And I mean, has this migration shifted your understanding of belonging and identity? Has that visiting all those places affected you?
Absolutely. I find that when I was in London, I was there for 2 years. This was prior to when I came to Canada. And London was, I mean, it was my first time outside my country, living in another country. So it was, for any international student, first couple of years are pretty dense. So I write about my belonging in London. I started to settle in the second year, and then I moved again, and I moved to Edmonton. And for 2 years, I was in Edmonton, and Edmonton was a very slow city compared to London, UK. And I mean, I loved working with Regula, and I loved my mentors at the UFA. but I didn't quite find my footing in Edmonton. And that's why when I received admissions at Harvard, I decided to go there, to go to Boston. So I lived there for a year and a half, and things didn't work out for me in Boston, at Harvard. So I had to move back. And since for a long time, then 10 years or so, I lived in Edmonton. And for past 3 years, I've been living in Calgary. In terms of belonging, I feel I belong in Calgary because I connect with the river very, very deeply. And Calgary does feel like home to me because uh, I'm surrounded by artists and community who have supported my work and who have, brought me up. So I find that there is a belonging that I have, found in Canada, um, especially in Calgary, after I came back. And that's how it is. The river gives me the belonging, the people give me, yeah.
Okay, okay. I apologize if I say this uh, wrong, but can you talk about the role of, is it Sufi music? Is it in your memoir? Because I imagine it's like a spiritual and emotional thread throughout your journey. It's the music that carries you, right?
Absolutely. So as a my memoir is really about a woman's journey, following her calling. And Sufi music has a very special place in it because it's a music that and it's poetry that is about love, and it's about love of the divine. It's about um when you're pursuing your calling, something that's very precious to you, for me, it's music. It is like pursuing a divine calling. It is because it requires endurance, it requires authenticity, it requires all those things that a rigorous spiritual practice does. And then life itself is a school. It brings artistic path is never a straight path. It presents all kinds of challenges. So in all of that, this music and this poetry has given me a kind of resilience that I would not have otherwise, had if I had not learned from my mentors. And I learned from two master musicians in Pakistan. One is a Sufi singer at the shrine of Shah Abdul Latif Bhitai in Sindh, and the other is a classical or Hindustani art music practitioner who was the nephew of a really, really major figure in Sindhi Sufi music, Manzoor Ali Khan. So my Ustad Hamid Ali Khan, who has now passed away, he taught me styles of Sufi singing that were more driven by art music of South Asia. And the other teacher, Fakir Juman Shah, taught me a tradition that is very specific to the shrine. So that was the locus of my work in, it's a locus of my monograph that will be coming out with Rutledge. But in this memoir, I've talked about some rigors in learning that music that I experienced. And so I've brought forward how learning from my ustad, made me the performer that I am today. So I really recounted that journey from 2012 when I became a student of my ustad to doing my maiden performance in Canada, and then winning Cultural Diversity Award, and then moving forward and going and evolving. So I've really shared that entire journey in this memoir. Yeah.
Now, your book's title, can you explain it a little bit? Writing in the Wound. Like, why did you pick that title?
Right. I was when I started writing the book, as I mentioned, I was in a very, very difficult situation. Um, and this book was really about, it's really what I call an odyssey of wounds. All that I experienced and went through to get to where I am. So this started with my time at Harvard, where I trace some of the scars that I, have inherited from my time at Harvard, which probably would stay with me all my life, because even after I had left, my work was appropriated. My
Oh,
research was appropriated. And I I wrote my memoir at a time where the person who has appropriated my research
oh, you know
is
who they are too.
writing. Yeah, oh, yes, of course,
It's a
because
small world, right?
it's a very small world.
Yeah.
So they are a published writer. She's a published writer now.
Oh,
And she's become that expert in the Shahjarrah tradition, misrepresenting my research. And my work doesn't get published because I don't have that access. Um, like I write from a level of cultural insider perspective that doesn't land well with ethnomusicologists because they don't know the culture well. And then there is bias towards Sindhis, and there are bias towards people coming from Sindh, and there are all kinds of prejudice you can talk about. So even though I studied with a scholar, Regula Bukart Qureshi, who's a very well recognized, very well renowned scholar in not only in Canada, but worldwide in South Asian music. She's a very top notch scholar. And she considered my work as pioneering and phenomenal. And, my professors at the U of A thought, oh, I was destined for a tenure track position and all of that stuff. And none of that happened. I didn't get through in the academic system. My work hasn't gotten published. So the wounds are just increasing by the day. And then the immigration system has rejected me. And then I was experiencing housing precarity, financial precarity. Where has life gone? I mean, what have I done wrong? I did everything right. I got the education. I, contributed. I won awards. I did all that you takes to live a
mm.
successful life. And yet I am experiencing precarity at the most basic level. So it's an odyssey of wounds. And nobody understands that, because when they look at me, they're like, oh, she's that successful performer who received Women in Music Canada, or she's this who has a PhD. So even talking about what I'm going through, there is no space for that, you know and this memoir is really an odyssey of wounds of what I've gone through to be where I am, and also what I am going through.
Now, obviously, you've gone through so many things. So how do you lift yourself up? Like, like it's a struggle every day for many people as well. I know a lot of writers are all very depressed people, I have to say. So, everyone's trying to find their way through this world.
So I talk about my healing journey, which started during COVID, because it was a very difficult time. Actually, my healing journey started much earlier, probably in 2015. And I think I did mention the turning point in my life when the grief itself was returning me, and listening to the wound was itself returning me to myself. So I started talking about the journey that was bringing me towards myself, because music was my most healing experience. The music I sing, the Sufi music, was my most healing experience. But after 2015, I began to experience life at a level that Sufi music was not doing. Like it was there, but I had become I had come in touch with life. So I do mention in my memoir this moment of learning from one of my teachers, a Faqir Ustad, who was at a Sufi shrine. And he gave me a prayer, because I would sing these stans, and I would sing it in a way that would take me to a place of trance. And my teachers could see that I used to go in trance. And one of my teachers, like Fakir Jaman Shah, he said to me that I see that you get carried by music, and my prayer to you is you don't go far in music. And I'm like, what kind of prayer is that? Why would a
Yeah.
teacher give, is that a prayer? And I'm just listening to him like, what does this mean? And he's like, I pray that you don't go far in music, because if you go this far in your trance, you will lose touch with life. And I'm like, I want to go far in music. What are you talking about?
Mm.
So I really did not understand what he meant. But in 2015, I met someone who really, felt like I wanted to have a life. I wanted to do what, I wanted to build a life with him. And so my attention moved towards building a life and creating a life, which I had not created
Mm.
in Canada that thus far, because I was just very much inside my
Music,
calling.
yeah.
So that started my healing journey because it came with so much grief because I was probably that person was wanted me as a friend, but not as a partner or, more. And
Okay.
that in itself created such a huge level of grief where I was in connection with him, yet not with
Yeah.
him,
Oh, yep. I've been
and
there
it
before. I know what you mean. Yeah, I know.
and it
Yeah.
created that sense of no, I can do this, and that it was like a challenge, right? And I've always accepted challenges in my life, so it became an opportunity for me to understand the culture and society here more because he was born here
Mhm.
in North America. So I began understanding and connecting with society and the people here at a level that I had not prior to that. I was very much in my research and South Asia and, you know, in the small Sufi community that I was working with and all. So that it really threw me off in another world. And that was a very grieving sort of experience, but it was also a very healing sort of experience because it brought me in touch with life and joys of living. And slowly and gradually, I began to move towards healing my inner child because I was performing music from a place of wound
Mhm.
prior to meeting him. And I realized that there are people and artists here who perform and who do music from a place of joy. And I don't know that place, and I don't know what joy is. So I began to search for joy.
Mhm.
And that became a healing journey. And then I discovered the work of Dr. Rick Hansen, and I became a certified positive neuroplasticity teacher. So I really did
Oh,
work
wow.
on myself to shift the way I lived.
Mhm.
I shifted my lifestyle, I shifted the way I perceived the world. And it has been a constant evolving journey because the more we move towards joy, the more life throws at us. And and so we have to really, you know, it's life is a test. So we really have to constantly um, heal and
Yeah.
move back to the joy. It's like, no, I can still find my joy again. So
Okay. Now, going back to your book, like, do you have any advice for people that are trying to finish something? Like, there's a lot of people that start writing, but they might not necessarily finish a manuscript. Was there any advice you could give to other people?
I absolutely would, but before I do give advice, I would like to say that I'm one of those people as well because my monograph is lying for 2 to 3 years. I haven't finished it, so I still categorize myself as one of those people. I think this writing in the wound came, and it's just been 5 months, and I've done it. It's because it came out of necessity. So knowing your why is very, very important. Why is it important to write the book or write the book that you are writing? Uh, you have to connect with that sense of necessity in order to be able to finish it.
Mhm.
And I think that's what has helped me in finishing this memoir, and it's giving me strength to finish my next book. Yeah.
Well, so Shumala, you're going to do a reading. Can you give us a little bit of context and let us know what you're reading?
Absolutely. So I'm reading from my memoir that got out this month in October 2025. It's called Writing in the Wound, Acculturation, Trauma, and Music. And this book is, so the excerpt that I'm reading is called A Badge and a Wound. And it reflects on the challenges of navigating systemic exclusion and immigration precarity, and how I used music, poetry, and storytelling to process pain and find a sense of belonging, particularly during COVID, when I was locked out of Canada for 2 years. So, this excerpt invites listeners to witness the wounds that we carry and the resilience that emerges from the art that through which we express our wounds and listen to them. Yeah. I clipped the ocean blue badge to my kurta the morning I boarded the ship. Rectangular and unremarkable, except for the way sunlight pooled on its plastic face. It read my name, and beneath it, music faculty, semester at sea. I had picked it up that day, December 31st, an impossible arrival after a flight from Toronto to San Diego that splintered into delay after delay. My passport had been lost in the mail twice. Many visas were still unsettled. Against every forecast, I had made it on board. The ship was a floating campus, a corridor of classrooms and decks, 100 students, 3 courses to teach, 13 countries to sail to, a constellation of rooms where late-night conversations bended with the slap of waves. I wore the badge into lecture halls and rehearsal studios, into a cafeteria that smelled of coffee and desserts, onto a small stage where I would receive a standing ovation for a faculty lecture and performance of Sufi zikr. For the first time in years, the two halves of my life, academic labor and artistic life, felt bridged by that strip of plastic. I did not yet know how little that bridge would be worth on paper. Walking has always been the way my chest unclenches. Step by step, a knot loosens, a melody untangles, and a word turns into music. My song Anticipating was born on such a walk through Edmonton. My feet a metronome, my breath carving space for home in the precarity of my final unfunded Ph.D. days. I reached the finish line only to find it opened into another race, the unending precarity of life as an independent scholar. Since then, life has been a practice of unlearning and shape-shifting. Walking inside the ship was another art, one hand free to catch the railing, steadying against the sudden lurch when waves threw us off guard. At night, when the tides howled and cupboard doors banged open, even moving from the bed to the bathroom required sea legs, the awkward art of keeping balance and not giving in to seasickness. Then the borders closed. In June 2020, I opened a letter that felt like a hand pulling a curtain. Canada would not process visas. My work permit still had 2 years left. The world had other plans. Stranded in Karachi, I watched the map of my life rearrange itself without consent. The floating campus receded into memory. The ocean blue badge, a relic, folded into a drawer beside my boarding pass and a curling concert program. Monsoon came. I recorded rain drumming against the balcony rails, wind rattling shutters, and the song of children next door. A crow hunched on a branch across the lane, feathers slicked down in surrender. Inside, the door to my house had shut on me. Where was I to go from here? The city too gasped. Floods devoured neighborhoods, leaving families dispossessed. This was Karachi's worst rainfall in living memory. So I did the only thing I could. I turned the recordings into a soundscape composition, Heralds of Heavy Rainfall. Out of catastrophe, I made listening to climate change possible. The piece carried quietly into the world and won small honors, second prize in the Listening During COVID contest. Over the next years, I performed wherever I could, remotely for International Women's Day and Canadian Music Week, weaving the sounds of Japan into compositions for ensembles from Alberta Musical Theatre and New Music Edmonton to New Works Calgary. A cross-Canada tour used Anticipating for suicide prevention awareness, and in 2023, I was named to Women in Music Canada Honor Roll. In a year prior, an artist residency at Mount Royal University and a collaboration with Alberta Eco Trust felt like new footholds. And yet the ledger of recognition read differently from immigration forms. 17 years of graduate and postgraduate labor, the papers, the concerts, the teaching, the nights of unpaid edits translated into an empty column. Express entry did not invite me. My self-employed file sat in limbo. Meanwhile, notices accumulated. An eviction notice pinned among other mail in Calgary. An email from my brother that I can no longer live in our family home if I return. Sometimes I take that ocean blue badge out of the drawer and press it into my palm. It carries pride, memory, and the particular ache of a woman whose labor funded others' belonging while her own remained contested. It was not a badge, it is an accounting of labor, the visible gestures and the invisible costs. There were days I could not take it anymore. I tell no one. I do not know how long I can survive this precarity without structural inclusion. I do not know if my body will give up. I do not know why the country that made my dream of music possible would dehumanize me. I called the crisis line 3 times in 24 hours, and one counselor told me simply, tell your story. These are the wounds I continue to trace in this memoir. The badge once shimmered like the sea promising passage. Now it feels like a tide that pulled me out only to leave me stranded on the shore. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for spending time with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
The Artsy Raven is produced by Dark Heel Express. Introduction voiceover by Chris Gorman. Music by Tim Moore. Please access your bonus content on the Patreon website. Thank you very much for listening, and please stay safe.